two teams who had a poor start to the season but whose form has picked up recently. My name is Mark. Let's talk rugby. Both teams were without their players in their respective Six Nations squads for this game, and one team coped with it a lot better than the other. But it was actually Ospreys who opened the scoring. So Hugh Sutton picks off a pass from Carberry, intercepts it. He goes deep into the Munster 22. Shane Daly cynically kills the ball. He gets himself a yellow card. Come back after we've played a few phases. Advantage. Ospreys not really getting anywhere, so back we come. He gets the yellow card. Myler then opens the scoring from the tee, 3-0 to Ospreys. Munster then they attack off the back of a scrum through Coombs. They make decent meters, but Morris gets himself over the ball to win the turnover. He did that a few times for Ospreys, and at times seemed like kind of a lone soldier almost on their side. Ospreys able to clear, but back come Munster. Ospreys, they try to kind of one of these where they try to turn the tackle into a maul and hold them up, but they're told to release by the referee. Nick Smith actually tries to rip the ball in the tackle. He gets pinged, and it's a penalty to Munster. Carberry slots it from in front, so back level at 3-3. Munster then from the restart can come back upfield. They've got plenty of willing runners. You've got Wychley, Salanoa, Zebo, all with decent carries, get them into the 22. Coombs then comes on a great line onto a lovely inside ball from Klein. Goes through a hole in the defence and goes on to score the first try of the game. We then have before the conversion, actually, we have a team overview for a hit by Bradley Davis on Salanoa. It's shoulder to head. He gets a yellow card because the ref said that he was basically receiving the contact, so he was kind of a passive tackler rather than the one initiating the contact. So that reduces it from like a red down to a yellow. 10 minutes in the bin for him. Carberry then converts, and we're at 10-3, and now it's Munster's turn to have an extra player. Munster then, they're hot on attack. They're coming back looking for more. We have Frisk makes a break, and he releases his centre partner Fekatoa to score his first try for the province. It was a lovely, nice move there and good combination between those two. Carberry misses the conversion into pretty stiff wind, 15-3. Munster, though, at this stage, are really looking ominous on attack. Patterson and Hodgenett making good ground, but then Morris gets himself over the ball again for Ospreys, wins a penalty for holding on. Ospreys, though, then they make a mess of the set move from the line out and give away a penalty for offside. A bit sloppy from them there, really. And they were kind of sloppy for most of the game, to be honest. Nicky Smith, though, he then wins a penalty at the scrum for Ospreys, and they go up the line and they have another decent position here. Klein, though, manages to disrupt the line out, and Wychley claims it and makes decent ground. Zebo then, he kicks through, and Myler's clearance doesn't make that much distance because there's like plenty of pressure on him. He's kicking from pretty much his own line with a couple of Munster men charging at him there. So Munster then, they attack from that line out, and Gavin Coons gets over the line, but Ospreys actually managed to hold them up. So it's a goal line dropout for them. Munster, though, keep up the pressure from the dropout. Frisk finds Fekatoa on a nice line. He then commits two defenders, gets his hands free to get the ball back to Frisk, who goes over to score. Conversion is missed. We're at 20-3. Munster looking really good at this point. Salanoa then, he gets pinged for a knee on the ground at the scrum. Penalty to Ospreys. Up the line they go. So like the scrum was the only good thing for Ospreys most of the game, really. Ospreys, they put a decent set of phases together. Kind of the first real chance that they had to do it. They do almost break through with Collins. He's going between for a gap that he almost gets through, but knocks the ball on. Munster then counter, break down the wing, the opposite wing with Zebo. There's a knock-on from Ospreys as the ball kind of goes loose. It's a scrum to Munster. They then attack off the back of what was a more stable scrum than the earlier scrums for them. Fekitoa then pulls the ball back to Carberry, and he had Daly as a kind of a dummy runner as well, but he goes straight through the gap, gallops over, scores a bonus point try. He converts his own try there, 27-3, and like you're already thinking like the game is over and it's not even half time. Ospreys, though they win a penalty in the Munster half, and they decide to kick it to the corner, trying to get that try just before half time to give themselves something to build on for the second half. Smith claims the line out for them. They set up the maul, but Munster do well to halt it. So Ospreys decide to spread it. Hopkins then shows really nice footwork, gets himself close, but Munster at that breakdown, they get in over the ball, they turn it over, and then they clear it. So half time is 27-3. O'Donoghue had to go off towards the end of the half. I think they said it was a thigh strain for him, but he did really well before he had to go. Munster scrum kind of struggled in the first half, but their line-out did go well. Both like their attacking line-out and defensive line-out, they were getting up and disrupting the Ospreys line-out a fair few times. But it looks like a long way back for Ospreys at this stage. Munster then, they're at it again, right from the kickoff. Carberry decides to go for a short kickoff. Taionui, who's it? Taioni, it is. He knocks on, and Munster are able to snaffle the ball. They go and attack there then. They spread out to the left wing, and Hognett puts Patterson away. Luke Morgan almost snagged him by the shirt, but he manages to wriggle free of him, goes over to score. The conversion is missed, but we're at 32-3, and the gap is just growing and growing between the teams. Carberry then tries a kick pass over to Zebo, and it's really well timed. Like basically, Zebo takes it in full flight down the wing. Hopkins then covers over well, and there's a knock on, but it was a decent move from Munster there to kind of create that space there, and then kicked into it. So you can see that they're creating space all over the pitch and very aware as well. Like Carberry seemed to be very good at making sure that they were exploiting the space that was there. Ospreys themselves, so they're struggling to get out of their own half. Like, problem they have is like when they kick it, now Munster are just running the ball back. They're not kicking it back to them anymore. And when Ospreys try and run it themselves, the Munster defence is just denying them any kind of progress. So they're in danger of like either knocking on or conceding a turnover. So kind of between a rock and a hard place really there for them. We then have a turnover. Jack O'Sullivan gets it, allows Munster to pressure Ospreys. Frisk is out on the wing. He kicks down the line. And Ospreys don't make much distance on their kick. Again, like Munster's chase is really good, getting in there, making sure that it's a difficult kick for them. Munster then puts Scannell through a hole off the line out. So he throws, it's one of these where he throws the line out in, it's caught and then spread back to him as he loops around. Then Wycherley gets him pretty close to the line. And finally, Gavin Coombs gets over to score his second. That's converted 39-3. Frisk then makes a great break up kind of like it's the middle of the pitch, but he's coming at an angle towards the sideline. So he gets into the 22, but he's always running across the pitch. And Hopkins and Myler do pretty well to kind of shepherd him over there and then get him into touch and also prevent the overflow, because it looked like it could have been yet another Munster try. But then Munster, they come back, they're applying more pressure close to the line. They win a penalty for not rolling away. They tap it, give it to Gavin Coombs. He goes close, then Rory Scannell does well to kind of clutch a ball that was kind of above his head and behind him. He's kind of running in under the posts almost. But he catches the ball, then he offloads to Fekitoa. Fekitoa goes over. He thinks he scored, but we have a Team O review. It's ruled out. It's a goal line dropout then. But Munster, they're not going to be denied another score. They come back from the dropout. Hodnett and Coombs, really good carries from them. They then put it through the hands, and Zebo goes over for his first try of the season in the URC. Converts his miss 44-3. That was a Zebo try, obviously really popular with the crowd there. Like he's, that guy, he's earned his accolades there. And Munster, it's good to see him, getting a try. Like it may not have worked out. Well, we won't say hasn't yet, but it doesn't seem like it's worked out. His decision to come back to Ireland to maybe get into the Rugby World Cup squad, but maybe if he hits a bit of form towards the end of the season, suddenly he's back in that conversation. So it's good to see him scoring tries again. Munster then, they attack off yet another good position with a line out. There's good running lines, and they put Daly over. Carberry converts this one, and they break the half century, 51-3. Ospreys then, they almost get a consolation try. Walsh, with a nice break from his own 22, kicks ahead. Then replacement hooker Barron, he actually shows really good pace to get back and forces the turnover. And Munster able to clear. Then we have a Daly try chalked off for a forward pass, but we come back for penalty advantage to Munster. Barron taps and goes, gets to within like a metre of the line. It's recycled, and Gavin Coombs gets over to complete his hat-trick, converted for 58-3, and that's how the game finished. Quick look at stats. So Munster 9 tries to 0, pretty comprehensive there in that one. They had 55% of possession to 45 for the Ospreys. 11 clean breaks to 2 just speaks to, how hot that Munster attack really was in that game. And Ospreys defence found it really hard to deal with them. Defenders beaten 22 for Munster, 13 for Ospreys. And it's again, I talk about this stat sometimes that it can be a little misleading, because Ospreys, they did beat 13 defenders, but most of the time it wasn't them making breaks or anything like that. It was just making somebody miss a tackle and then somebody else comes in to cover for them. Whereas Munster really were like beating those defenders in those breaks they were making. Offloads 14-2 in Munster's favour as well. So like a lot of the tries, or not a lot of the tries, but some of the tries, there were offloads in the build-up as well. So it wasn't just kind of offloading for the sake of it that you see from some teams now, where the ball is just kind of pinging around and they're not really making progress. Like they're just going from one bad situation to another just by flinging the ball anywhere. But Munster's offloads were with purpose, which is good to see. On to the defensive stats then as well. So territory, Munster were on top of that as well, 59-41. And I talked about Ospreys kind of found it hard, especially in the second half, to get out of their own half. And they had that problem with, like, if they kicked it to Munster just ran it back and broke into the 22 and set themselves up there. If they tried to run it at Munster, that Munster defence was pretty solid. They were really finding it difficult to find ways through. In terms of the tackles then, 114 for Munster to 142 for Ospreys. So, normally when a team is well beaten, you kind of find that they've had to make a lot more tackles than the opposition, but fairly even for like that scoreline really between them. But again, like looking at missed tackles, 13 for Munster, but 22 for Ospreys. Munster were making them miss those tackles a lot, with really good running lines, and not just from the ball receiver, but the kind of the support lines and the dummy runners as well were very believable, and just created a lot of gaps for Munster to go through. Tackle success, 90% for Munster, 87 for Ospreys. So kind of 90 is where you really want to be on that stat. So Ospreys, a little bit of improvement needed there. Turnovers, 4 for Munster, 6 for Ospreys. Morgan Morris again, he was heavily involved in most of the turnovers for Ospreys there, so really was a shining light for them. And then kicking success, 60% for Munster. As I said, Carby a little bit wayward from the tee. Ospreys 100%, but it was only one kick. It was right in front, so can't really read much into that. Penalties conceded then, 6 for Munster, 10 for Ospreys. And the problem Ospreys had was that with, like, apart from taking the early points, obviously, the other 5 penalties that they got, they were going up the line, but then Munster were getting in there, disrupting their line out, and just meaning that they couldn't get really any platform into the game. They did win a couple of scrum penalties, but when they went up the line, Munster were just able to either disrupt or even win the ball back at the line out. So, like, Carby looked really good from open play. He was a little wayward from the tee, to be honest, but it's good to see him in good form and kind of responding, in a positive manner to the fact that he was left out of the Ireland Six Nations squad. Ben Healy, who has switched allegiance to Scotland, he did really well when he came off the bench as well. Carby switched back to fullback when he came on. Then there was lots of great performance throughout the team, like the back row, Hodnick, Coombs, O'Donoghue when he was on, O'Sullivan when he came on for him, like all just went really well. Fekitoa and Frisk looked like a really exciting centre partnership, and it's kind of a pity that they're going to be broken up at the end of the season with Fekitoa leaving. just as they seem to be clicking. Zebo and Daly, they were trying to get involved as much as they could as well. But like I could name the entire Munster 23, the likes of Patterson, etc. It's all having really good games. Ospreys, on the other hand, like were pretty abject. Apart from the scrum, probably Morgan Morris was standout performer. The other kind of bright light in the dark, as it were, for them. But I just want to take an opportunity now to say that I think it's a disgrace how the WRU are handling the funding situation with the regions and how they're treating the players as well. They're leaving all these guys to worry about their contracts. Like these are people with families, mortgages, etc., bills, same as anyone else, but they don't know whether there's going to be a contract there for them at the end of the season and what that contract is going to look like. There's talk of a possible player strike for the Six Nations game against England. You're probably going to see players leaving Wales because of this to go to England or France. And you can't really blame them. Like the way they're being treated, like it's just not right. Like, and the WRU, like they've mismanaged the regions and like professional rugby at that level in Wales for such a long time, and now they're just making a bad situation worse. And they really need to get their finger out and sort it out. But in terms of like Munster, they're looking good as we approach the sharp end of the season, and they could have maybe a tilt at a semi-final or even a final or a trophy, the way they're coming into decent form now.